been levelled at you repeatedly over the last few years. Is the obsession of a particular wing of the Tory party, particularly on an issue such as the customs union, impeding the finding of a really quite easy and pragmatic solution?
The customs union is a protectionist racket that protects continental European businesses at the cost of British consumers. It puts up the price of food, of clothing, of footwear. These hit the poorest in our country the most because the largest portion of their spending goes on food, clothing and footwear compared to the richer in society.
And the poorest people of the world.
And the poorest people in the world. That's
and
absolutely right,
places.
because it discriminates against imports from some of the poorest countries in the world. So it impoverishes poor countries at the expense of our poorest consumers. To get out of the customs union is the great advantage of Brexit. It will be very good for people in this country, but it will also help some very poor countries elsewhere in the world. The customs union is a real disgrace and a blot on the reputation of the European Union, if it's got a reputation.
Well, I think that the idea that the World Trade Organisation is a sort of munificent kind of, charitable organisation, whereas the EU is grasping and nationalist, is a very strange way of putting this. I mean, I do think that it is something that I just do not think is in the mind of most Leave voters. This is what I think is fascinating. If you think, and I know you hear a lot about, we need to respect the results of the referendum, we also need to be really interested in what drove the referendum. And I think that was economics and immigration. I do not think it was free trade.
Okay. Cheaper food's a pretty attractive thing for most people in this country. Cheaper clothing and cheaper footwear, likewise.
But if we fall out of the WTO terms, we will not have that.
Yes, we will, because we set our own tariffs. Just a moment, because it's really important. In the WTO, you register your tariffs with the WTO. We could put 0 on food, 0 on clothing, 0 on footwear, and that would be a decision of the British government.
OK, I tell you what, we'll get you guys together to talk about the customs union at another point, because you can talk afterwards. I want to ask you about Damien Green, because Damien Green has been in the news today. A former Scotland Yard detective told the BBC this morning that he was shocked by the amount of pornography viewed on a computer seized from the Commons office of Damien Green many years ago. Damien Green denies all those allegations. I understand that the Evening Standard is reporting that friends of David Davis have said that he may resign over this issue. Can I ask you a specific question, which is what do you think explains the timing of this investigation into Damien Green?
Well, I think the real scandal here goes back to what happened when Damien Green's office was searched by political inquiry by the police. It was quite outrageous and unconstitutional that an opposition member of Parliament had his offices raided and information stolen for the convenience of the then government.
That may be the real scandal too. I'm asking you a question about right now, which is
patience. I'm coming to your question.
We've got lots of other things to discuss. That's a scandal from some years ago, and I hear you, and you've made that point clearly. What explains the timing of it now? Because there are many people that say Damien Green is being targeted because of his closeness to a Prime Minister who's currently weak.
The point at the origin is really important, because as a general principle of law, evidence taken from illegal searches is not admissible evidence. And the police behaved disgracefully as a political arm of the then government. They raided an opposition minister's offices. They raided the House of Commons. This was a real scandal. And now the police, or ex-police, are using information obtained improperly to damage a politician. What we should be asking about is the politicisation of the police force under the last Labour government, not about Damien Green.
But it's a police force under this government that's revealing confidential information about an active investigation.
These are retired police officers, so it's not.
What about David Davis? If David Davis leaves, do you think that's a credible threat that he might resign? And do you think that it's...
Why should David Davis resign?
Well, do you think if he did resign, as is being reported by some newspapers... No, I'm not asking whether he should, but do you think if he did, that would be damaging to the government?
I've heard no rumours about Mr Davis resigning. He's a very important member of this government. He's a very significant figure. He has great support across the country, and I could not see any reason for him to resign.
Well, it's on the front of the Evening Standard, which, not for the first time in recent months, is going to be interesting reading. Edited by someone who's not on the same side.
Has some very odd views, and likes